So congratulations on your admit to Columbia Deferred MBA. And before we discuss your profile, could you tell us more about the idea of the Deferred MBA?
Sure. So the idea behind a deferred MBA is quite simple. We know that most top B schools require a certain amount of work X before you can actually apply through the conventional route. So via deferred MBA, what they want to do is they want to target all the applicants who are certain that they want an MBA or an MBA lies in their career trajectory in the future. And they know their goals, they know where they're going to be eventually, and an MBA would help them be there. So for these candidates, these schools came up with these deferred MBAs to essentially give them an avenue to essentially just have a seat reserved for them, and then they can focus primarily on their work and for the next couple of years gain some work experience after they graduate and then go for an MBA. So you don't have to deal with GMAT and all the application prep while you're working. You can get it all out of the way when you're still a student and you're used to all the studying and all. And yeah, and essentially it's a very low risk way of applying to all of these B schools.
Yeah, absolutely, especially because from my research, you don't need to pay for your application file, if I'm not mistaken. So when you submit your application, you don't need to pay anything. And when you secure your place as well, you don't need to commit to large sums of money. So that's
true.
That's a very nice opportunity, in my opinion. But just like me, many candidates are not and were not aware of deferred MBA's options when they were in college. When did you get to know about the program, and how did you prepare for the same program?
So I was in the same boat till the very last minute, in fact. So I knew that HBS had a 2+2 program, which was like the OG deferred MBA. And I wasn't aware that any other B school offered deferred MBA, to be completely honest. And I took my GMAT pretty late in the cycle. In fact, I got my result, my GMAT result, about 2 weeks before the deadline for some of these B schools. And honestly, it was, I would say that despite my school having certain alumni in these B schools, there was very little knowledge. So not a lot of folks know about these programs. I'm sure a lot of folks even right now don't know about these programs in my school, like 3 years back, but even right now they won't. I was lucky enough to stumble on while just doing some due diligence in terms of, okay, what are the options available for me as a consultant going to take his MBA eventually. I knew that I was probably going to apply to HBS 2+2, but I wasn't really, keen on, okay, is deferred MBA a thing apart from this? And I realized that CBS has, in fact, they just launched their deferred MBA program the year I applied. So it was the inaugural batch. And due to the fact that I had taken my GMAT very late, I had to prioritize. I had to decide that, okay, either I can spend 2 or 3 weeks and, target 3-4 schools, or I could essentially just choose which school I really see myself being in and go all out on that. Because at the end of the day, it is a process, right? There's a lot of stuff involved. It's not just about a GMAT score, and I think we can talk about that later. But
absolutely,
yeah, I zeroed in on CBS, and I realized that, okay, as much as all these other schools are amazing, CBS seems to be the perfect fit for me and my career goals in particular. So I'll just give my all, and hopefully that rather risky strategy, which I would never recommend to anyone, paid off.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. And I'm just curious, so which other programs did you apply to? Or you only
I did not apply to any other programs.
All right.
Actually, back then, there weren't a lot of programs offering deferred. I don't think so. Wharton now has a Molus Scholars program, if I'm not wrong, but that wasn't open to non-UPenn students when I applied. HBS had 2+2. Stanford GSB did not have a concrete deferred program, as far as I recall. And I think Booth had a deferred program. Kellogg, I don't think did. So again, I might be wrong here, but this is what my research told me. And CBS was the school that they just started the deferred. So
yeah. And how does the Columbia MBA, deferred MBA, differentiate itself from the other programs that you looked into?
Yeah. So CBS, again, it's all New York. So being in like the business capital of the world has its perks. And again, Columbia University's the alumni base is amazing. And a lot of the alumni are actually based out of New York. So you have unparalleled access to alumni, you have unparalleled access to industries, and it's not just about finance. So CBS, a lot of people think that CBS is a very strong finance school. Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of folks who go into consulting, tech. There's a very bustling startup scene in New York as well. So the world is your oyster at CBS. And I personally was really inclined to the New York aspect of it. I wanted to move into the investing eventually. And for a person who has zero background, since I'm an engineer and I'm not doing IB or something of the sort, New York would provide me with that opportunity to essentially intern in during my school years and, just like connect with industry leaders. And I don't have to take a train from or like take a flight from Boston to New York to do that if I were in some other school, right? So that was my rationale behind choosing CBS. Apart from that, of course, it's world-class facilities and faculty. Plus, they're also building a new campus. So they're moving their school to a new campus, and that campus again is going to be top-notch. So really looking forward to that.
Very nice. And what were some of the key highlights of your profile, which you think helped you differentiate your profile from the larger pool of applicants?
So my profile was your cookie cutter MBA profile. So I had to differentiate somewhere. An Indian engineer who is going into consulting isn't exactly something that stands out. What did help me out was I had a decent GMAT score of 760.
Wow.
And apart from that, I had a very concrete career story. And I think the entire conversation about what a candidate should have would come down to this point of having a very concrete career story in place. So I had that. I knew that, okay, I am someone who wants to move into investing eventually. And if in order to get there, this is where CBS would help essentially as a person who's only doing consulting post engineering. So I knew where I wanted to be. I knew how to get there, and how to get there was CBS. And just communicating that in a way which makes the school know that, okay, this guy has the priorities straight is super important, I think. And apart from that, what stood out, I think, was some leadership experience is really important in some form or the other. In my case, it was rather unconventional. So in my case, my leadership experience stemmed from theater because I was really avid and I was directing theater back in school. So I essentially tried to take an analog of how, running a production or running a theater production is similar to running a project or managing a very small company, because there's a lot of different departments that you have to take care of. It's not just about, okay, after you're not performing well. No, there's a lot of facets to it. And I just essentially took that as my leadership experience and talked about how this was where I led a team. This is where we failed. This is where we succeeded. These are the learnings we took from that failure. So a lot of candidates actually fall into this trap of thinking that, okay, I have some extracurricular experience, but it's not really leadership experience. I haven't really done anything like in a startup capacity. I haven't done anything like leading a club. But if you essentially had any form of experience where you helped people, mentored people, and led teams of any sort to achieve something, or even if you were unable to achieve anything, if you learned things from that, that could count as good leadership experience, at least according to what I've seen.
Absolutely. And I truly think it's you don't have a cookie cutter profile, as you said. Actually, this is what makes you different, and this is what made you stand out, I presume, in that larger pool of applicants. Very interesting. So we would also love to hear about your application strategy. So what I mean by that is actually, how did your interview experience go with the program? Probably you had the opportunity to discuss about your passion with the AdCom.
Yes, I did. So prior to the interview, something that everyone who's aspiring to get into these programs should do is I connected with a lot of folks who were already pursuing their MBA or had pursued their MBA at CBS. So CBS has really great resources that you can leverage. They have the Miss Society, which you can leverage. They get you in touch with students and alumni as well. Or you can, of course, you have LinkedIn, which is like the best resource for that at the end of the day. And just learning from their experience not just helped me prepare for the interview, so to speak, but also solidified my idea that CBS is the place for me. So that becomes super important, because if it's again a part of the whole soul searching thing, that you learn from the experiences of others, and that will just, if you have that conviction in you that okay, this is the right place for me, it will show in the interview. The interviewer will know whether you're just applying for the sake of it, or whether you really want to be there. And I think that is very important. As for the actual interview, again, this was pre-COVID times, so a completely different dynamic, but the interviewer was an AdCom member, and she was actually in India at that point of time. So I was able to have a face-to-face interview, and we just met up in a hotel lobby. It was very casual. It was very like relaxed, and it was essentially just a chat about my career and where I see myself being and how CBS is going to take me there, and about the things that excite me about CBS. And even though from what I've learned from folks that I've been talking to recently who have applied to these programs, I think now it's a second year MBA student who takes the interview. So even though those dynamics might have changed slightly, but at the end of the day, that's all they're assessing as well, right? They're just assessing whether you're passionate about CBS and whether you have it figured out what you want to do and what you want to extract out of this program. And that's what I've told everyone who's asked me, how do you crack an interview for B school? And yeah, in fact, you did mention how the theater thing was probably what stood out. I spent ample time talking about theater during the interview. That's not something I mentioned in my essays or anything. It's just something that came up during the interview because it was there on my resume. And all the standard interview questions, like, tell me about a time you failed. If I could essentially relate them to my theater experience. So I think that kind of stood out, I guess. So.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with you. In fact, I've also, as an MIM student, been through the interview process with an ex-MBA, so an MBA alumni. And I could totally say that they're here to help you succeed and to understand why you actually want to join the program. So I truly think that having a clear vision of where you're going towards where you are going is essential. So now, actually, from what I've seen, if I'm not wrong, it's been almost 2 years since you received the admit. So how was your journey been so far, and how has the university supported you in your career development?
So my journey has been quite nice. A lot of it, I would actually give most of the credit there to Bain. So Bain being a great place to work. The university has essentially provided many touch points at various points of time. We have our own newsletter through which we stay updated on stuff. There's also invitations to events and talks. And unfortunately, because I am in IST there in New York, the timings usually, they rarely match up. But I always have an option to attend all these talks and seminars, by industry leaders. And essentially, all these talks that are usually reserved for Columbia students are available to you. And apart from that, of course, once things open up and things become a bit better, you can always visit the campus. They would be more than happy to accommodate you in classes, and you can, speak with their career development cell. And there's ample touch points available, and they're always there. They're always responsive. In case you have any queries, you can always reach out to them. Apart from that, you can always use this opportunity to network with folks who have gotten in as well. So quite recently, in fact, we decided that everyone who got in from India would make a WhatsApp group and, just share updates and how things have been going. So that's one way of networking. And yeah, apart from that, there's also Slack channels where all the CBS, in the past 2 years, who has been selected, they're all in that channel. And if anyone has any questions, anything, people are responsive there. So that's quite great.
Allow me to just clarify, if I understood correctly, you first joined Bain and then received the admit, or was it the other way around? Did you join?
Sorry.
Yeah, did you join actually Bain after receiving admission to Columbia? How did it work?
No, I had, so it's like a multi-fold process there. I had my Bain offer in hand when I applied to CBS, and I did
Mm.
mention a job offer. Post, but I got my admit while I was working at Bain. So when I applied, I only had the offer, and it was like back in school year. But the process was drawn out for a couple of months, of course. And by the time it was over, I was already working. It had been like a month or two since I had started working.
Okay, and maybe are you planning to be sponsored by MBA, or are you considering a career transition?
Haven't really thought it that through, to be honest. If I do, my aim at the end of the day was to move into investing, and I was thinking that 150K is not a small sum of money, so sponsorship does make sense. But I'll have to evaluate that depending on the scholarships and stuff like that. And yeah, as much as I love Bain, it's always good to have that flexibility, right? Because they say it's supposed to be a transformative experience. That's how they sell it. So let's see.
Okay. I think it's fair enough. I completely resonate with your thoughts. And I actually am curious to know what are the opportunities to engage with the school before you join the program. You previously spoke about those networking and inspiring talks, but also what is the level of interaction and learning opportunities from other selected candidates?
So, in that sense, you will have to create your own opportunities. While the school can, of course, facilitate these things, it's up to you to actually take the initiative and make those opportunities happen. So, some like I previously mentioned, something as simple as just reaching out to folks from your geography or your areas of interest, because when people do get in, there's like a quick message about how their profile and what they're doing and stuff like that. So again, you can reach out to those people via either Slack, or you can reach out to them individually. Apart from that, if you ask the school to get you in touch with folks who have been selected from your particular industry or your industry of choice, the school would be more than happy to do so. At the end of the day, they're all your classmates, right? So that's going to be like, that's always a benefit.
Okay, sounds very interesting. And my last question, actually, what advice would you give to students looking to apply to deferred MBA programs, and particularly Columbia MBA?
Sure. So the first advice would be, it's not a huge mountain to scale. Don't feel daunted. These are all top business schools. Yes, you'll have to bring your A game, but at the same time, don't feel don't let anyone dissuade you. As long as you're pushing, you should be able to make it. Apart from that, what's very important is to get your story in line, your career story. What have you done till now? How does how does that fit in with where you're going and where you want to be? And how does Columbia fit in with, or any B school for that matter, fit in with where you're going immediately and where you want to be? You need to be very clear about those goals. At least having some initial clarity really helps. So I know that it's not very easy for someone who's very early in their career to know whether I want to stick with, say, consulting my entire life, or whether I want to open a startup in 5 years time. No one can really predict that. So just having some initial clarity of thought really goes a long way, because you know that there is a plan A, and if that plan A doesn't work out, you can always fall back on plan B. And again, plan A might change. It is very dynamic, and by the time you actually matriculate, you might have a completely different career trajectory than what you planned for. But at the same time, you have room to experiment once you get in, right? So have a good concrete plan A ready, which is, of course, it's good to be aspirational, but it also has to be grounded in reality of whatever's happened till now and what is possible.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's super important. GPA and GMAT, keep them high, but a low GPA shouldn't dissuade you. I did not have the most stellar GPA, like mine was above average in terms of GPA. However, I did have a decent GMAT score, so I was able to compensate for that. So try to keep a balance there, but it won't make or break your application. But again, it's good to have like a balance in that sense. And apart from that, make sure that you're very, very certain about why you want to do an MBA. Because a lot of folks get caught in this trap that, MBA is just a ladder to high paying jobs. And, that if that is your motivation behind doing an MBA, then it might not be the best idea. Because at the end of the day, you need to know exactly what you want to derive out of this MBA or any other MBA, exactly what kind of opportunities would open for you, and whether they are the right opportunities for you, and whether you are the right fit for this MBA as well. Otherwise, you're just gonna, waste a lot of money, and your time. And time is more valuable at the end of the day. So yeah, those are my key takeaways.
That's a lot of food for thought for future applicants. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. We wish you best of luck in your future endeavors, and we hope you'll enjoy your journey at Columbia. And thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.
And thank you so much for having me. And best of luck to everyone applying, and best of luck for this initiative as well.